Hey everybody out there. I've tried to make a video about a very specific thing all week, and I've tried all kinds of versions, some fancier with all kinds of effects built into them, some more stripped down, and I thought about it a lot and what I wanted to talk about, and eventually I just decided the best would be you and me. No cuts, no edits, just talking to you. And camera on, letting it run, and me talking about it. As I'm sure many of you know, most of you probably know by now, last week, Sheldon Menery passed away, the godfather of Commander and many other things. He was not only a huge influence to our game of for Magic, but also a great personal and professional friend of mine. We were quite close, and it's been a tough week. You know, it's a huge presence that is no longer there. You know, the first time I saw Sheldon, you know, many people know him for Commander now, but the first time I saw him was in a judging context. Me and my mom drove down. Well, my mom drove. I was just in the car, and my brother drove down to U.S. Nationals. We'd qualified for the Junior Super Series Championship, where we'd win scholarship money to pay for college. There was this thing on Saturday night or Sunday, I can't remember, but it's called Massive Magic. And what it was is going to be Richard Garfield versus the crowd, I think, whoever was competing. But what happens is there's these huge oversized cards, not kind of unlike, I've got this Crucible Worlds back here. That one wasn't there, but you know, that kind of thing. And it was an oversized match of Magic. And then in the dead center, like adjudicating the whole thing, was the legendary judge, Sheldon Menery. And he commanded the room so much that my mom, who knows nothing about Magic, I mean, basically nothing besides the very, very, very top level stuff, and certainly didn't know back then, she took a picture of it, and I may find the picture and like put it down here or something. But she took a picture because his presence was just so commanding, and it was at that moment I saw Sheldon. I'd maybe heard the name before, but at that moment where I saw him command that room, that I was like, wow, this person knows what's going on. Like, he's really a big figure, and only growing at that time. I mean, that was in 2003 when I was 13, so you know, it only grew and grew from there. And he was a huge inspiration for me, actually. A lot of you don't know this. You probably know me from my design work, and maybe others know me from my competitive work. But I actually became a judge. I became a level 2 judge. I judged local events and pre-releases. Kind of did that when I wasn't playing on pro level events. If I'd already qualified for that pro tour, or if I was, it was a pre-release or something, I would judge. And Sheldon was a huge inspiration for me there. Like, I saw him, and I was like, this is someone who is an arbiter of the game at the highest level. And I kind of fell in to the judge program through that. And he did so much as a judge. You know, back in those days, you wouldn't know it now, but it was the Wild West of Magic in the late 90s, early 2000s. And all kinds of sketchy stuff was happening. And, you know, for many people, it wasn't, were you doing something sketchy, but what sketchy thing is the thing that you're doing? There's kind of the feeling that at the top levels of professional play, you had to kind of do that to succeed. And Sheldon came in and helped really put an end to a lot of it. I mean, other folks like Chris Bakula, for example, were huge parts of that as well. But Sheldon on the judge side was like the guy. And the thing is, you have to understand, and he always made this very clear to me too, he wasn't being antagonistic to the players. It wasn't like he saw the players as the enemy. And in fact, many of them he saw as his good and close friend. But he was working with the players to help make sure he could stop whatever sketchy shenanigans, whatever cheating was running in the tournament. And he, you know, if you were on the side of good, Sheldon was your friend. If you were on the side of nefarious actions, Sheldon was a man to be feared, and the last person you wanted to see around. He changed the whole tournament scene. And much of current day competitive Magic, the pillars it is based on, the foundation of rulings comes from him and his presence and the kind of things he did to allow it to exist. And I have one story that I love of Sheldon's, and he told this many times, and I heard it many times because he would love telling it to a new crowd, and I would actually usually be like, hey, tell them this story because I loved it, to kind of just show you like the kind of innovations he would do to help prevent this kind of stuff from happening. So there was a Grand Prix, and if you've never been to a Grand Prix or a Magic Fest or Magic Con or any kind of event of that size, if you play in a sealed deck tournament, you have to register your deck. What happens is you sit down, you get handed a piece of paper, and you open up the sealed card pool, and you have to write down all the cards you open. There's like little boxes with all the card names, and you fill in the number of how many cards you opened next to that. and they put your name at the top. And the reason why is you're going to pass your sealed pool to someone random. It's going to get randomly redistributed. And that makes sure you don't get to sneak in your own deck, right? You can't just be like, oh, I opened 3 Master Cores, or whatever the crazy card is in that set, Bananas card, and you can't just lie about what you opened, basically. Because then you get passed it to someone else, their name's at the top, they've registered it, and you have to build with that sealed pool. And if there's ever any discrepancy in your decks, you play your second Master Card against somebody, they can call a judge and be like, hey, can you check his deck list? And if it doesn't line up, well, then you're cheating. However, some players got very keen to this, and what they started doing was they would bring pre-filled deck red sheets from home. So they would register as normal, they would get handed a new sealed pool that was already registered, but then cleverly they would, when no one was looking, everyone's like building their deck or whatever, they would swap them out or turn in the other one or whatever, and have their triple Master Card deck or whatever officially registered. They would just write the name of whoever passed it to them on the top, and that was that, okay? Sheldon was at one of these Grand Prix, and he's like, I'm putting an end to this. I'm stopping this right here, right now. I'm going to change the amount of people that do this. Because the people who were all doing sketchy stuff like that, they all kind of knew, meaning them were on the ends with each other. And so they would talk if there was a way to catch it that happened. So here's what he did. He took the deck registration sheet, and before printing it, he did something that almost no one knew about. He was head judging the event. He deleted the S off Birds of Paradise. So Birds of Paradise, Bird of Paradise, they look super similar. You might even be like, oh, which one is it? Bird of Paradise, that sounds about right. But he just took Birds of Paradise and cut off the S, okay? Then he sent out all the deck red sheets, printed them out, sent them out to the pool, to everyone. They register their decks, they turn them in, whatever. Round 1, all the judges go to do their normal things, and Sheldon gathers them all, and he's like, no, here's the deal. You're not going to do any of your normal stuff this round. We're going to have a few judges out there answering judge questions, whatever. But instead of doing any deck checks, we're going to look through all of these deck lists, all 800 or 1,000, however many it was, and we're going to find all the ones that are missing an S on Birds of Paradise. All the ones that say Bird of Paradise, pull those out. And so the judges go through and meticulously find all the ones that have Bird of Paradise on them, and they pull out 20, 30 sheets that have Bird of Paradise, and they promptly call all those people up to the stage, and they all get disqualified. Incredible. It's that kind of thing that was like revolutionary, that like in one swift blow made a very clear stand. If you are doing something untoward, if you're cheating at these events, you are not welcome here, and we will stop you. And that kind of attitude, the playful, like Sheldon's a very playful, fun person, but when it was business time, it was business time, and he would put an end to all this unkindness. And I love that story. And there's so many ones just like that Sheldon brought to the table. And that should be remembered, and our game would not be where it is from that perspective without him. Of course, most people know him from Commander, which the godfather of Commander. He helped make the format all the way back in the Alaska days, and then popularize it, make it more popular with tons of people, and spread out to the judge community, where it spread out to more players, until eventually we released a product for it, and it totally blew up in an incredible way. And playing Commander with Sheldon is so enlightening. There's all kinds of things I took from him over the years that he taught me. One that will always stick with me is, I used to do a thing, I think many of you have probably done this, where you're not sure who you should attack in the early game, you just roll a dice, pick someone at random, you attack them. And the first time I tried to do that against Sheldon, he stopped me, and he's like, own your decisions. You make the decision here. Don't do it at random, make it clear who you're attacking. And I was like, what, really? And he's like, yeah, look, here's the deal. Make it clear they're not just going to attack someone at random. You're really going for one person here, right? That's how this is. That's how I believe the game should be played. And of course, not everyone has to ascribe to that philosophy, but I always kept that with me a little bit as something that's like, oh, I'm not going to roll dice anymore. I'm going to do this for Sheldon. I'm going to own my actions when I attack somebody and make it known that, hey, I'm attacking them, and politically, I'm not attacking the other two players at the table, right? And the man just did so much for the format, and he loved it so deeply and cared about it so much. And even, I had the great fortune of visiting him many times out in Florida where he lived. And if you go, he had an entire shelf. If you went, he had an entire shelf dedicated to his Commander decks, right? The whole upstairs of his place had cool Commander stuff all around. And even when he wasn't doing well, he would still bring people out to play Commander. A couple months ago, last time I saw him, I went out for a weekend, and I was me and David McDarby, and so some others were around. that we had invited in, and or Scott had invited in, who were for local players, and we played Commander. We played Commander, and even though he, couldn't wasn't hypermobile, his mind was all there. And I know that's got to be the hardest part, is that his mind was so functional, even though his body and the cancer he had fought for 7 years was slowly slowly taking him away. And he on the last day, the very last time I saw him, the very last minutes I saw Sheldon for the last time in person, he brought me over a little bag, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to have this." And I opened it up, and inside was this, which is I think you can see this here. This is a Keen Duelist signed by him, a card that he designed, and I got the pleasure of helping make happen for him. And it's signed by him, and it's a gift. It is probably the most important card, one of the most important cards in my entire collection now. He gave it to me as a gift, and he didn't know if he was going to see me again. I don't know if I was going to see him again, and he gave it to me as something very, very special. And yeah, Wizards. I mean, he came to me one day, and I was like, "Hey, Sheldon, you've done so much in Magic." Like, we were talking. We're at SCG Con, I think, and we were sitting in the bleachers of the stadium, just chatting about design. Right next to SCG Con, and I was like, "Hey, you've done so much in Magic. Is there anything you've always wanted to do?" And he said, "I would love to come in and do a design stint at Wizards. I'd love for that to be part of the things I've done. I've done almost everything else." And I said, "I don't know. Okay, I'll try and see if I can make that happen." So I went back to Wizards. I pitched it around. Everyone was like, "Let's make it happen." So we brought him in for a short 2 or 3 month contract, and at the time he was actually working Monday through Friday with us at Wizards. And then many weekends he would fly back to actually get cancer treatment in Florida at his hospital. That's how much he wanted to be there, to be doing this. And he was a light in the office. He brought so many fun quotes and worked on the design of the Strixhaven decks. And he worked on the Black, White, Silver Quill precon for Strixhaven, one of my favorite precons we've made. It has the Brina as the commander. It's got this political thing going on. And Sheldon really invigorated it with like, "Hey, let's make this this political commander deck," was part of the things he pushed for, which is, I think, he cared about so much. The politics of Magic, multiplayer Magic allows for you to have that if you want to, and I think that was just wonderful. And Ink Shield, of course, a card he's very passionate about, and yes, of course, Keen Duelist as well, a card that he made, and was quite keen on. And it was a really incredible experience. I'm really glad we got to have him in there and to touch Magic for just a short amount of time. But a really meaningful one. And to have him working with us and have someone from the rules committee working with the designers on a daily basis was really special. And that connection kept. When I would visit him in Florida, I would bring out some upcoming products and we would play test them. And I was really glad we got to do that and to get his feedback in. And even in the last day I was there, we were still talking about future Commander stuff, which I'm sure you'll find out about at some point, and some of the stuff we worked on together. But he was great. I asked him once, we were out on his couch late at night, and I asked him, "What's your secret? Like, you've done all this stuff, you've been so successful, you've made a lot of incredible things. Like, what is your secret?" And he said to me, "I'm not the best at everything. I'm not great at everything, but I'm really great at surrounding myself with the best people. And once you do that, the rest all falls into place." And I always think about that. And he said his superpower was picking great friends, and did a good job. I felt honored to be around him and to get to know him. And it was really a really meaningful experience. The night last Wednesday, as I record this, I hadn't talked to him in a couple of weeks. We had last time I had chatted with him. We had been going on about some design stuff basically, and things weren't bad. They got a little contentious, as they can when you talk about game design. But it's just your kind of normal stuff. And that's kind of where we left the conversation. And last Wednesday, I was sitting at my desk at home, and I was doing work, and I was really busy with something. But just this thought popped into my head, and you can call it whatever you want. You can call it coincidence, divine providence, anywhere between, whatever you ascribe to. Which is this thought, like a different kind of thought than normal popped into my head, which was I should say hi to Sheldon. It's been a few weeks. I haven't talked to him in almost 2.5, 3 weeks. And so I sent him a message. I was like, hey, how are things going? And we talked back and forth. I told him I loved him and cared about him. He said he was trying his best. I think things were, not great, but he was going to try more exercise, and he was doing as well as he could, all things considered. And I'm really glad I got to do that, because the next day I got a text that he was in the hospital and unresponsive, and then later that night I got the call that he had passed away. And I'm so glad I got to talk to him that one last time. It really means a lot to me. And it's a reminder for all of you out there that tell people you love them, tell your friends you love them. Don't wait. And I'm so glad I got to do that. And if someone is in a tough situation, you never know when you're going to see them again. And when I saw Sheldon back in, a couple months ago, I knew, I'd known every time for the past couple years that I had seen him, that it could be the last time. I'm so glad I got to, hug him before I left and play some more games with him and just chat like we always did, but knowing with the undercurrent of it could be the last time. And I'm so glad I got to message him at the end. He wasn't a perfect person. He wouldn't call himself a perfect person. I think perfection is something you can strive for, but no one should be expected to attain. But he was a world of a person. He was a cosmos of a human with so much to give and has done so much for our community and so many of us out there. Like, you would not be playing Commander today without him. I try to put a lot of good back in the world. And I hope that you can take some of these lessons, some of what I've talked about today, and some of these stories, and put a bit of good back in the world the way that he would want for you to. And, I have a lot of ideas of ways to honor his memory, but I knew the first thing I had to do was talk about it. And I guess part of making this video has been so hard because I knew when I made it, I would be saying he's really gone. And his memory will always live on. And I'm so thankful for the time that he and I and all of you had together to work on this game that we all love. So, may you find some comfort. May you go out and do good in the world. Make the world a better place. And that's the best gift you can give to anyone on his behalf, because I know that's what he would want to happen. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate all of your support as always. And sorry for no videos this week. I'll be back at it next week about some fun stuff for you in MagicCon Vegas, where his presence will certainly be missed, but I'm sure you'll see plenty of things there talking about him and the impact he had on Magic, and I'll probably be a backup on somewhere talking about it there too. But in the meantime, go do some good and help this game do something good for someone else. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.